Hey, how's it going? Parker Walbeck here again, joined by our newest team member, Nick Sales. And today we're going to be giving you our top 10 tips to getting clean professional audio for your videos or films. I always say the audio is half of the viewing experience, and one of the biggest mistakes that we see beginning filmmakers make is neglecting good audio. So pay close attention to our mistakes that we've made over the years and mistakes we've seen others make as well. Before we get started though, big thanks to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Storyblocks is a great service for when you're in need of a quick video clip for B-roll or an After Effects template or a motion background. The thing I personally love and use most on Storyblocks video are their title animation After Effects presets. To quickly up the production value of one of my edits, I'll often use one of their title animation presets, like the one you saw at the beginning of this video, that you can put together in less than 2 minutes by downloading the preset, opening it up in After Effects, editing the text, exporting it out as RGB plus alpha, and then dropping it into Premiere. This quickly gives your edit a much more professional feel with minimal time and effort. So I highly recommend looking into Storyblocks video to up the production value of your videos, and you can do so by clicking on the link in the description below or go to storyblocks.com/Parker to learn more about Storyblocks video. But let's now dive into our top 10 tips to getting clean professional audio. Nick, take it away.
Tip number 1 is choosing your location wisely. When shooting dialogue outdoors, try to find a place with limited background noise. Next to busy streets, construction sites, airports, crashing waves, and large trees blowing in the wind can make it difficult to capture clean audio. When shooting indoors, try and find a place with little to no reverb or echo. Hardwood floors, bare walls, and empty ceilings are a good audio's worst nightmare. Do a clap test in the room that you're choosing to shoot in and see if you hear a reverb or echo. If you do, and that location is your best or only option for shooting, make sure to dampen the sound as much as possible. Things like carpet, big objects like couches, materials on the walls, and pretty much anything that can break up the sound from easily traveling from one flat wall to another will be your friend if you're trying to record good audio. In the ideal situation, you would have acoustic foam panels all around the room to completely get rid of any reverb, but we know that's not always possible, so what you can do to help dampen the sound in a room is to put up light stands with blankets over them, and then get those blankets as close to your subject as possible while not getting them in the shot. Here's an example of a scene without blankets and then with blankets to help give you a feel for how much they help. So this is me talking without any blankets. This is just the natural reverb of the room, and here we are with the blanket set up. As you can tell, there's a lot less reverb, and these blankets have dampened the sound a little bit so that my voice sounds a lot more clean and crisp.
Tip number 2, once you've picked a good location, the next biggest mistake I see is people not putting the microphone close enough to the subject. I always tell people that for most microphones, an ideal distance to keep the mic from your subject is between 6 and 14 inches. Now, sometimes you can't get mics quite that close because they'll be in the shot, but get as close to that distance as possible, as that will make sure that the main thing your mic is picking up is the voice and not the ambient noise or reverb bouncing around the room. To help illustrate this, here's Nick talking with the mic at different distances so you can see how much of a difference it makes to keep that mic nice and close.
This is me talking with the mic 1 foot away from my mouth. This is me talking with the mic 3 feet away from my mouth. This is me talking with the mic 5 feet away from my mouth. And this is me talking with the mic 10 feet away from my mouth.
The volume of his voice was the same throughout all of those clips, but you notice that the closer the mic was to his mouth, the better and cleaner it sounded. For sit-down interviews like this, you can use a boom mic on a stationary stand, but for moving subjects, you'll either have to have a lav mic on their shirt or a boom operator to track the subject to keep the mic as close as possible at all times.
And going off of that is tip number 3, which is lav mic placement. If your subject isn't stationary and you don't have access to a boom operator, then your best bet is going to be to put a wireless lav mic on your subject. And we often get asked where is the best place to put the lav mic for the cleanest audio without getting any muffling noises. I found that the best location for a lav mic is about 6 inches from the mouth, directly below the mouth on the outside of the subject's clothing. You can either clip or tape the lav mic to the subject. Either way, you should do some test audio by having them move around and talk and make sure that no article of clothing ever rubs up against the mic. If you're in a situation where you need to hide the mic and can't have it showing on camera, then you may have to put it under the clothes. If it's going beneath clothing, I recommend taping rather than clipping so that you can always ensure the mic won't move or become unclipped. I've done this for many of my tutorials where I tape the lav mic to the inside of my shirt. The audio won't be quite as crisp as it would be if it was on the outside of the clothes, but it will still give you great audio.
And speaking of hiding mics, tip number 4 is to get creative with where to place the mic so that's not seen. If you have 2 actors talking to each other, you could have one of them hold up the mic or a cell phone and then frame them in a way to where you can't see the microphone. And in films, pretty much anytime you see a shot of 2 people in a car, they either have a lav mic on, or they have a boom mic hidden somewhere in the car underneath the dashboard or behind some other obstacle that makes it so it's not seen in the shot, but still close to their mouths. But getting creative and problem solving while on set is so important as a filmmaker, so make sure to stretch your creative muscles and try and figure out where to hide microphones, because putting the microphone far away from your subject just isn't a good option for capturing quality audio and will ruin your films. And here's an example of a scene with two actors where the first shot will be audio coming from the in-camera microphone, the second shot will have one of them holding a cell phone, and in the third shot they'll be holding a boom mic so you can see the difference.
A tarantula enjoys a fine chewing gum. A tarantula enjoys a fine chewing gum. A tarantula enjoys a fine chewing gum.
Tip number 5 is to test your recording levels before you start filming and make sure you aren't peaking or going into the red area. If the gain level on your microphone is too high, it will cause distortion. And if it's too low, it will cause fuzzy background noise. Whether you're running your audio through an external recorder or in your camera, you will see the loudness meter measured in decibels, or dB for short. You want your audio levels to sit anywhere between -18 dB at the lowest and -6 dB at the loudest. Also keep in mind that sometimes people will get louder if they become excited when they talk, or if they laugh, that can usually be louder as well. So make sure that you watch those audio levels throughout a take, and if they begin to consistently talk louder or quieter, make sure to adjust your gain levels accordingly.
Moving on to tip number 6 is to use a windscreen or dead cat to cut out the wind while filming outside. In my experience, dead cats don't do a whole lot, but they can help a little, whereas windscreens are a game changer. And the one that I use is a Rode blimp for my Rode NTG3, and here's just a quick example of what the audio sounds like with and without a windscreen so that you can see how important it is to have one of these while filming outdoors.
The skeleton ran out of shampoo in the shower. The skeleton ran out of shampoo in the shower.
Now, if you're recording on a lav mic, putting it under the shirt will help as a windscreen and shield a lot of that wind. Or if you don't have any windscreens or dead cats, do whatever you can to block the wind, like choosing a location where the wind is blocked by buildings or people or any object. Or if you have to shoot out in the open, at least try and point the microphone in the same direction that the wind is blowing so it can cut down on how much of that wind noise is entering into the mic. Now, for studio mics like this, there isn't any wind in here to worry about, but you still have to worry about plosives, or the blowing air that your mouth generates when you make a p sound. So make sure to use a pop filter to block that air from blowing into the mic, and make sure to place it at least an inch or two away from the mic, because if it's right up against the microphone, it won't do its job very well. Now, some microphones like this one have a built-in pop filter, but most mics don't, so make sure to have a pop filter to avoid hearing those plosives.
Next up, tip number 7 is to do a sync clap when using external recorders or multiple camera angles. This will help you match up your external audio with your in-camera audio. Sometimes if there are multiple takes, I'll clap the same number of times as the take so that I can easily see which audio matches up where. This also helps the synchronization software to sync up your audio, so where possible, make sure to do a sync clap as soon as you start recording. As far as syncing up audio in post, Premiere Pro has a tool built in called Synchronize. All you have to do is drag your files to the timeline, stack them on top of one another, highlight all of the ones that you want to sync, right-click, and then hit Synchronize, and within seconds it will match up all your audio. If you have dozens or hundreds of takes, this process could get tedious, so we highly recommend using Plural Eyes, which is a Red Giant software that can sync up large numbers of takes in a matter of minutes.
Moving on now to tip number 8 is to have a redundant system. Where possible, record with 2 mics at the same time so you always have a backup. Now, this is a best case scenario, and I know that many of you beginning filmmakers won't have the luxury of having 2 microphones, but if possible, and especially on shoots where there's a big budget, you need to have 2 microphones recording at the same time, usually a boom mic and then a lav mic in case one of them fails. The Tascam DR10 SG is a cool microphone option because it has a feature where it actually records 2 audio tracks at the same time, one at normal audio levels and one 6 dB lower. That way, if you ever record a clip that distorts on the normal recording, you can always replace it with the second track that recorded at 6 dBs lower. And tip number 9 is once you've captured your audio, to use editing tools in post to adjust audio levels and clean up any issues for the cleanest possible audio quality. The biggest problem that I hear in many beginner films, even if the audio is captured well, is that the audio levels are constantly changing throughout the video from super loud to super quiet, or the overall audio level is just too quiet or too loud. And the 2 most common tools we use inside Premiere Pro to help with these issues are EQ and compression. For EQ, we use a tool called Parametric Equalizer, which allows you to take certain frequencies and make them louder or softer. Now, using this tool can get a bit complex as it depends on the voice, the microphone that was recorded on, and the environment in which it was recorded as to what exactly you'd want to do in here. But typically with a recording of a voice, we'll click on HP, which stands for high pass filter, filter, which gets rid of any low frequency rumblings like breath pops in the microphone, and will usually boost the mid to high frequencies to help brighten the voice and make it cut through so it doesn't sound flat or muffled. Think of it like adding contrast or saturation to an image, just makes it pop off the screen a bit more. And to give you an idea of the different effects you can achieve using EQ, here's a few different sentences using different EQ patterns. This is what my voice sounds like, boosting the low end and reducing the high end. This is an effect that is usually used to make it sound like a voice is coming from the next room over if you were listening to a conversation through a wall, or is oftentimes applied to a music track during a part of the film where the subject goes underwater. This is what my voice sounds like with just the midtones boosted and everything else cut. This is a cool effect to use if you want to make it sound like you're talking through a phone. There's so much you can do with EQ to tweak and play with different frequencies. As for compression, this is a tool that basically closes the gap between the loud and the quiet parts of an audio track by making the loud parts quieter and the quiet parts louder. It basically evens out your whole audio track so that it's all playing at a consistent volume level so that your viewer doesn't have to constantly be turning the volume up and down. And the compression tool we use inside Premiere Pro is called Dynamics. We simply drag it onto our clip, hit edit, and often we just use the preset called soft compression and then adjust the makeup until our loudest parts are hitting around -3 to -6 dB. You can play around with other settings in here as well, but just be careful not to get too out of hand or else your audio will start to sound too compressed and begin to lose a lot of quality. We've found that the optimal settings for the makeup tends to be around 3 to 10 decibels depending on how loud the audio recording was. And as one final safeguard to make sure there aren't any parts of your audio that are clipping, we'll check on the limiter, which will then limit the audio from ever going above 1 decibel. So if there's one really loud part in your audio, like a clap or a burst of laughter, it will keep that from clipping or distorting. Now realize that these are really basic tools for some basic audio editing, and you can always go more in depth by bringing your audio into Audition and buying plugins and using more advanced tools to reduce background noise, sweeten the voice. But with just EQ and compression within Premiere, you should be able to get by for most scenarios.
And finally, tip number 10 is to listen to your audio through different headphones and speakers when mixing in the editing room. Different speakers like studio monitors or nice car speakers will have a lot more low end than cheap laptop and phone speakers. So this can affect how your final mix sounds depending on what speakers your viewers are listening on. This becomes important when mixing dialogue with music or other sound effects. Typically, if your voice track is peaking at around -6 dB, then your backup music should be peaking at around -15 to -30 dB, depending on the loudness of the song. But this is a case-by-case scenario, so make sure to listen to your audio through different speakers, checking that the audio mix sounds good no matter what speakers your viewers are watching on. And on our kit page, and the link in the description, you can see a list of different speakers and headphones that we recommend for editing audio. And speaking of gear recommendations, here's a few recommendations for audio equipment that we use. The most common type of microphone for film is a shotgun mic, and we recommend the Tascam DR10SG if you have a lower budget, or if you have a bigger budget, I would recommend buying the Rode NTG3 or a Sennheiser 416 along with a Zoom H4n or a Zoom H6 to record into. The second most common type of microphone for film is a lavalier mic, or a lav mic for short. You can get a relatively inexpensive lav mic that plugs right into your phone for around $65 if you go with the Rode SmartLav Plus. A mid-range lav mic would be a Tascam DR10L, and then a high-end lav mic would be a Sennheiser EW112P G4. For on-camera mics, we love and use the Rode VideoMic Pro for the higher end, and for being on a budget, the Tascam shotgun mic is a decent option as well. And for voiceovers, podcasts, or audio like what you're hearing right now, on the cheap end, we recommend getting the Blue Yeti, mid-range would be the Rode NT1, and on the high end, what you're hearing right now is the Shure SM7B with a cloud lifter. And this is probably the most popular and most widely used mic for this type of audio. And again, links to all this gear is in our kit page in the description.
But there you have it, guys. Those are our top 10 tips to getting clean professional audio. I promise if you follow these tips and practice applying them, your production value will go way up, which should help you attract higher paying clients. And if you'd like to learn more filmmaking tips and tricks just like this, you can join our ultimate online film school at fulltimefilmmaker.com, where we have over 300 tutorials just like this and a community of over 10,000 students from around the world to connect with and learn from. And you can check out our free 1-hour filmmaking training by clicking over here to get a preview of what the course is like. But that's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any further questions, please let me know.